Okay, so let us carry on then. And we're going to look a little bit more about this idea of listening to the Dhamma at the right time. So here we go. This is a sutta with Nandaka. And from the numerical discourses, the chapter of 9 is the 4th sutta. So he says, I think this is Nandaka speaking, reverence, there are these 5 benefits of listening to the Dhamma, the teaching at the right time, and discussing the teachings at the right time. Yeah, 5 benefits. What are those 5 benefits? Firstly, a mendicant proclaims a teaching to the mendicants that is good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end, meaningful and well phrased. And they reveal a spiritual practice that is entirely full and pure. Whenever they do this, they become liked and approved by the teacher, respected and admired. This is the first benefit. Okay, it's interesting, isn't it? So you will notice here, first of all, this is proclaiming, mendicants proclaiming to other mendicants. It doesn't really say lay people. But of course, lay people would also often be present. In those days, I think the teachings were often given to other monks on the Uposatha day. For example, that was a standard time for giving teachings. And then they would give teachings, and then there would be a large assembly present. Monks there would be nuns there, and then there would be lay people, lay men and lay women also present. And so very often in the suttas, the Buddha will say bhikkhus, monks. But that does not mean that there were only monks there. It means that the monks were like the primary audience, number 1 part of the audience. They were the more senior, and the Buddha always speaks to the more senior, and everyone else is there in the background. So this is the first thing. And you will notice that it's not just any teaching that you're supposed to give. It's a teaching that is good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end. This is Addi Kalyana, Majja Kalyana, Pariyosana Kalyana. Kalyana is beautiful or good or powerful, beginning, middle and end. And this is this idea that when you practice the path, every stage of the path is beneficial. Every stage of the path is good. It's not like you have to grit your teeth and work really hard in the beginning and finally when you die you become happy. No, every part of the path is supposed to be happy for you. And if it isn't, you need to readjust a little bit. So enjoy keeping those precepts. Enjoy the kindness. Enjoy all of these things. And when you do it with joy, then it becomes really, really powerful and beautiful. The middle is often the meditation practice. The middle should be fun. You should enjoy your meditation. Don't make it into another burden. I must meditate to be a good Buddhist. Oh no, I got to do 20 minutes this morning. Oh, I don't want to do it. I got to do it. Okay, I'm going to do it. The wrong way to think. Enjoy it. And if it isn't really enjoyable for you, then don't do it so much. Do it even less. You don't have to meditate. Much more important that you are virtuous and kind than that you meditate. Virtue, kindness, generosity, this is the real foundation of the path. That should be number 1. Meditation should be number 2 at most, if coming in at all. And then the last part of the path is the wisdom, the insight. And that certainly, of course that is good fun, because when you get those deep insights, you also get the most profound happiness at the same time, because you let go of stuff. You leave stuff behind, and that always leads to happiness. So these are the teachings you should teach, not just any teachings. They should be meaningful, sa-atta. They should have a purpose. They have a goal. They are clear. They are meaningful and well phrased. The teachings of the Buddha clearly articulated, and they are meaningful in the sense that they go towards something positive. They have a clear goal, etc., etc. So this is why we focus on you notice this, of course, has to do with this is the way the teaching of the Buddha is phrased. They reveal a spiritual practice that is entirely full and pure. Entirely full means you don't need anything else. You don't need any other teachings apart from the Buddha's teachings. It is fully pure. It has all the elements required to reach full purity. And also, one of the kind of amazing things about the Buddha's teachings is that there is nothing there that suggests you can do bad things. There's nothing there that can corrupt you in any way. There's nothing there that suggests bad things are okay. So when you give these kind of teachings, you become liked and approved by the teacher. So the teacher is the Buddha. So you become approved by the Buddha. That's kind of nice idea, isn't it? So the Buddha approves of you. And you become respected and admired. I'm not sure whether that is by the teacher now or whether it is by someone else. I wonder what is the Pali here. Not sure what the Pali is. What liked and approved by the teacher? Do we have the Pali in front of you? Okay. Bhavaniya. Okay. So this is like. But I'm just wondering about who it is that you are respected and admired by, whether it's a teacher or others or whatever. It doesn't really matter. The main point here is that you are approved of by the teacher. It doesn't matter so much, interestingly, whether the audience approves of you and respects you. That's kind of irrelevant. Isn't that interesting? It doesn't matter what everyone here thinks. If I give a teaching, I shouldn't be concerned about what the audience thinks. And that's kind of nice, because when you don't not concerned about what the audience thinks, it means you can have more integrity in the way you teach. If you are worried about being liked and approved of and respected, then you might compromise a little bit to be extra nice or to say things that the audience might want to hear or whatever. But if all you are concerned about is representing the Buddha correctly so that the Buddha approves of you, that is what is important. So I think actually that is what is going on here. You are liked and approved by the teacher. The teacher is the one who approves you. And whether the audience likes you or not, that's kind of secondary here. So, satta, exactly, the teacher, exactly, satta. That's an interesting, very interesting point, because it is very easy to kind of get attached to the idea that the audience should like you. But if you don't really care so much about that, then the integrity can be maintained. So that's positive. So this is the first benefit. The teacher approves of you. Ajahn Brahm maybe approves of me when I go teaching. I hope so. I hope he approves of me. Otherwise, he doesn't stop me from going, so hopefully that means he approves of me. Sometimes Ajahn Brahm says, stay more in Perth. I have to talk about you with that, Bobby, before we leave. Ajahn Brahm says, stay more in Perth. You travel too much. And I think, okay. So we need to discuss. We'll discuss at the end of the retreat. I'll have a chat with you. Anyway, furthermore, a mendicant teaches the mendicants the Dhamma. Whenever they do this, they feel inspired by the meaning and the teaching in the Dhamma. This is the second benefit. So when you teach in the right way, then you yourself will be inspired by that teaching, because you are bringing out the meaning, hopefully, and you kind of lifts you up. And one of the things you find in other suttas is that you can use the teaching of others as a foundation for your own samadhi and your own meditation. It's a little bit intense here because we do a little bit too many teachings, so there isn't that much time for meditation. So maybe we should find a bit more balance next year. I've already suggested to Bobby that we should do one retreat which focuses a bit more on meditation, and maybe one which focuses more on the suttas, so we get a bit better balance. Otherwise, it can be too much, and after a long day, you can't hear any more Dhamma. It's just too much, and you wonder what's going on. But this is the idea. This is the purpose, ultimately, of teaching. Is to kind of be inspired by it. And it's one of those kind of amazing things. You can see Ajahn Brahm teaching, and you can see that he feels inspired. He sits there with closed eyes and just talks. And sometimes he almost stops. And it's like he can barely talk because he feels, you can see the inspiration is there. And he says, if I'm not careful now, I will just disappear into samadhi. I can't talk anymore. So he has to stop himself from entering samadhi. But then after you finish, then you can do it. Then you can kind of enter samadhi. So this is one of the main reasons, one important reason for teaching. You get lifted up yourself by the teaching. Furthermore, a mendicant teaches the mendicants the Dhamma. Whenever they do this, they see the meaning of deep saying in the Dhamma with penetrating wisdom. Yes, so teaching, this is actually about listening to the Dhamma, so I'm kind of getting it from, I'm getting the wrong end of the stick here. But many of these things are equally true for the one who teaches and the one who listens. And so you can see here, going back to the previous one about feeling inspired and the meaning and the teaching in the Dhamma, is that the audience also ideally should feel inspired and uplifted by the meaning of the Dhamma. Furthermore, a mendicant again, so you see the meaning of deep sayings, things kind of become clear to you. You understand how the Dhamma works. Ideally, you even gain some really deep insight into these teachings. May not be that common, but sometimes it can happen in certain contexts, that you gain access to the deep meaning of what is actually going on. So this is the third benefit of listening to the Dhamma. So we're talking about listening here. Furthermore, a mendicant teaches the mendicants the Dhamma. Whenever they do this, their spiritual companions esteem them even more, thinking, for this venerable has attained or will attain. This is the fourth benefit. I don't quite understand what's happening here. Yeah, it's a bit weird, isn't it? Because it says here, listening to the Dhamma, and the way it is phrased, it sounds like the teacher is gaining the benefit. So I'm a bit confused now, to be honest with you. So, yes, whenever they do this, the spiritual companions think more highly of them when you teach the Dhamma. That's interesting. So when you teach in the good way and the right way, then people think that you have attained something or will attain. So whether you actually have attained, that's the second matter, but they start thinking like this. Maybe that's wrong thinking, I'm not sure. Depends on the situation. Furthermore, a mendicant teaches the mendicants the Dhamma. Whenever they do this, there may be trainee mendicants present who haven't achieved their heart's desire, but live aspiring to the supreme sanctuary from the yoke. Hearing that teaching, they rouse up energy for attaining the unattained, achieving the unachieved, realizing the unrealized. There may be perfected mendicants, arahants present, who have ended the defilements, completed the spiritual journey, done what had to be done, laid down the burden, achieved their heart's goal, utterly ended the fetter of continued existence, and are rightly freed through enlightenment. Hearing that teaching, they simply live happily in this life. This is the fifth benefit. So those who have not yet fully achieved enlightenment, they become inspired and they start practicing for the achieving of enlightenment. And those who are enlightened, they still come to listen to the Dhamma. Isn't that interesting? You are enlightened, you still enjoy listening to the Dhamma. And you just live simply, happily, because you rejoice in the Dhamma when you are awakened, when you're an arahant. One of those kind of remarkable little things that you find in the suttas is how a Dhamma teaching can take you out of illness. Have you seen that? Sometimes in the Bojjhanga Samyutta, the connected discourses on the awakening factors, there were people who were ill. And when they were ill, other monks, they would go to other monks and they would say, please teach us, please remind us of the 7 awakening factors. And when they taught the 7 awakening factors, they would come out of the illness. Or there could also be other discourse, like the Girimananda Sutta and other things that would lift people out of illness. And on one occasion, the Buddha was ill. And the Buddha says, I think to Mahachunda, he says, Mahachunda, please recite the 7 awakening factors. And when he does that, the Buddha comes out of his illness. And that's kind of really strange. Isn't that strange? You would think the Buddha had the inner power to emerge from his own illness. Why does he need someone else to recite the awakening factors? And I think it's because sometimes we misunderstand who the Buddha really is. The Buddha is a person like everyone, and if he is ill, he loses his energy. And maybe he doesn't have that energy to be inspired by the awakening factors in the way that he normally does. And so he gets someone else to recite them, someone who has that inspiration, someone who has that extra energy. And he listens, and as he listens, his mind becomes clarified. Just like we're seeing here, the Arahants, they live happily when they hear the Dhamma. In the same way, the Buddha himself listens to the Dhamma and gets uplifted by it. And then that uplifting, that energizing of the mind is then probably what drives away that illness as a consequence. It is kind of curious, yeah, but I'm not sure of any other way to understand that. And so that's how I see it. But it is a little bit unusual. All right, let's carry on. Now we come to verse number 8. So we have just listening to these other verses. We come to verse number 8. So perhaps you thought I wouldn't get through all the verses, but you would be wrong. You don't know how I work. So now you we know. So verse number 8, being patient and easy to correct, the seeing of monks and nuns, and the timely discussion of Dharma. This is the greatest good fortune. Yes, some more qualities that you don't hear about so often are coming up here. Being patient, we talked a bit about patience already, but again, one of these kind of critical factors on the path, because when you are patient, you can bear up with things, you can deal with things. It creates patience to do that. Being easy to correct. Yeah, if someone says something to you, being easy to admonish, you are open to being admonished, opening to listening to, finding out where your faults and flaws might be. The seeing of monks and nuns, this is samana. Samana really is what I translate as monks and nuns, because that's usually what we think of in the Dhamma. Samanas can also be translated as ascetics or whatever. And then the timely discussion of Dhamma. We have already seen this a little bit about the listening to the Dhamma at the right time, and now also the discussion of the Dhamma at the right time. So this is the greatest good fortune. So let's go delve into this a little bit. So here we have this famous verse from the Dhammapada, the Kanti Paramang Tittika verse. And so this is Dhammapada 184. Patient acceptance is the ultimate fervor. Not sure about fervor. Is the ultimate asceticism. Sorry? Ultimate pursuit. Yeah, I think. Yeah, is the kind of the ultimate asceticism. I think is closer to the thinking. Kanti Paramang Tittika. Yeah. Anyway, extinguishment is the ultimate, say the Buddhas. No true renunciate injures another, nor does an ascetic hurt another. Yeah, patient asceticism is the ultimate, patient acceptance is the ultimate asceticism, the ultimate practice of the Dhamma in a sense. Yeah, there's something about patience that is really, really important in life. We often tend not to be patient enough. We are too reactive rather than responsive to the world. And this is a very nice way of thinking about the distinction in the Dhamma, this distinction between reaction and response. When you react, it basically means it's automatic, it just comes out of you. If you respond, there's more a sense of care there, or reflection about it. Yeah, patience is needed for you to be able to respond rather than just to react. We should react less and we should respond more. This is one of those kind of fundamental ideas in the Dhamma. So we should be. So this takes patience. Yeah, what are we supposed to be patient about? And one of the most important things when we talk about patience, we are really talking about being patient with the suffering in life, because that is when patience is required. Yeah, when someone speaks to you in a bad way, yeah, you have to be patient to be able to deal with that. Yeah, someone says something, very easy to react straight away and kind of react and then say something bad in return. But if you want to avoid that kind of reaction, you have to be patient. How can we do that? It sounds hard, right? If someone talks to you in this kind of unpleasant and nasty way, how are you going to be able to be patient with that kind of person? And the way to be patient is to again have this understanding that this is not personal. When someone talks to you in a bad way, it's never personal, it's not about you, it's about them. They are talking in this way because of their own inner state. That's why they speak like this. And so remember, if it is not about you, if it's not personal, it becomes far easier to accept. This is one way to do this. The other way to do this is to remember that if someone says something bad, it's usually because they are hurting inside. There's some suffering going on there. And when you think of the other person as hurting, rather than willfully saying bad things to you, much easier to have compassion for them rather than to be upset yourself. The third way to think about this, to have patience, is to remember that the world is full of bad speech. It is just the nature of the world that there's going to be bad speech. It's just everywhere. You can't go by a day without having some bad speech. Or maybe here at the BGF, we don't hear that many bad. At least I don't hear any bad speech here in BGF because I do all the talking. So no. So very little bad speech, People are generally friendly and nice, and what a wonderful thing that is. But in general, in society, we can expect people to get a bit upset and say bad things. So it is the nature of the world that there is bad speech. We cannot always get upset because of that, because then you're going to get upset a lot. So you just come to accept that this is the nature of the world, as there is the nature of the body to hurt. And so you have to have patience, acceptance with your body. Okay, the body is hurting. What do you expect? The body is an abyss of painful feelings, like the Buddha said. There is no end to the painful feelings in the body. And because there's no end to the painful feelings in the body, at the end of the day, you're going to have some degree of acceptance of that. In meditation, we should sit comfortably, but you shouldn't expect to be completely devoid of even the tiniest pain. That is impossible. You have to bear with a little bit of pain in the body. If you don't, you're not going to get anywhere. But of course, there comes a point when you should shift your posture because it becomes difficult, or the mind becomes obsessed with the pain, or whatever it is. So we have to be bearing up with these things in the world that are part of the world, that are how the world works. Difficult speech, pain in the body, other things that happen in the world that are kind of an inherent element to how the world works. And this is a kind of asceticism, because you are being patient with what is difficult to bear. It is, but instead of kind of creating unnecessarily painful feelings, like you do if you're part of the Hindu tradition, there's enough difficulties in the world already, and if you can be patient with that, you're doing really well now. So then we have extinguishment. Nibbana is the ultimate. Nibbana paramang sukhang is one of the famous things you find in the suttas. So Nibbana is the ultimate. Paramang, the highest, the best. Extinguishment. Extinguishment is a nice translation for Nibbana. You like the translation extinguishment? Or do you prefer just Nibbana? Some people like just Nibbana, but I think extinguishment is good because it reminds us of the meaning. If you just say the word Nibbana, you kind of make it mean anything. Nibbana, then it's up to you to kind of plug your defilements into Nibbana, so to speak. For Nibbana, Bodhi is awakening, right? Bodhi, Buddha. So there is already taken, and that literally means awakening here. When you Bodhi means to, if you in the Russian they still use the word Buddha. In the morning you're Buddha. It's you. So that is the actual literal meaning. Buddhati means to wake up. So it is closely related, but Nibbana means the extinguishment of the flame. So you have Nibbuto, the flame going out. And so that is so the literal meaning is much closer to extinguishment than to awakening here. And so it is, I think it is the appropriate translation. Some people have used extinction, which is also, but it's a bit too negative, when something goes extinct, it has a very negative feeling. whereas extinguishment is kind of neutral in that sense. No true renunciate injures another, nor does an ascetic hurt another. Yeah, one of the fundamental ideas of the Dhamma is that you don't harm anyone or anything in any way. Yeah, this is. I think I mentioned it the other day. The 4 qualities of the Dhamma. Yeah, the non-injury, the non-greed, the samma sati, right mindfulness, and samma samadhi, the 4 qualities of the Dhamma from the Anguttara 4s. So patience, yeah, so important in the Dhamma, otherwise we can't really practice properly. All right, let's carry on. This is from the Kandakas. This is again from the Vinaya Pitaka. And now we're coming to the idea of forgiveness. So in Pali, forgiveness and patience are very closely related to each other. It's the same word basically that is found. Kanti and kamati, these are related to each other. Because when you are patient, you forgive. Forgiveness is a kind of patience, if you like. You accept other people's flaws, okay, that's okay. So you deal with it. You forgive, you're patient with it. And forgiveness is a very important part of the Dhamma. When asked for forgiveness, you should forgive. If you don't, you commit an offense of wrong conduct. This is for the monastics. If you have a disciple who asks for forgiveness, you should always forgive. If you don't forgive, you are blocking the spiritual progress of that person. Forgiveness is so important. So we should always forgive. It's a beautiful thing to do in life. And I would really recommend you to make this a very important part of your practice, to forgive everyone. One of the things as someone who is on a spiritual path is that we cannot really afford to have any enemies. We cannot afford to have anyone we dislike or anyone who is kind of we don't feel at ease with. So we should forgive anyone. Everyone in the world should be forgiven to the best of our ability. Sometimes it can be hard because there may be people in the world who have hurt us in a very bad way, and especially if they are close family members, can be difficult to forgive. But even then we should at least try. We should move in that direction towards forgiveness. And even if we cannot go all the way, we can go part of the way. How can you forgive? And again, the idea of forgiveness is actually much simpler than you think it is. And the idea of forgiveness is related to the idea of non-self, the idea of conditionality, understanding that people are who they are because of cause and conditions, not because they want to be bad or evil, anything like that. No one really wants to be bad. I think everyone wants to be kind. Is anyone here who doesn't want to be kind and nice? Everyone here wants to be kind and nice. Of course you want to. And the reason you want to do that is because you know that kindness and niceness leads to happiness for yourself. It's kind of obvious. And so everyone wants to be kind and nice, and yet despite their defilement, because of their defilements, because of their background, because of their habits, because of all of these things, you are trapped in a certain conditions, and you can't be nice and kind even though you want to. You are doing important things despite yourself. You want to be kind, but you can't. And once you think like that, then you can start to forgive anyone for their, transgressions against you, because you understand actually, this is the way they have to be, and that's kind of okay. And sometimes when people treat you badly, it can be a good sign. I was thinking recently, because sometimes as a monk, you can be also on the receiving end sometimes of bad speech. And sometimes I thought to myself, when someone speaks to me badly, it doesn't happen all that often, but it happens occasionally, then I think, actually, it means they are relaxed around me. They are relaxing, because if someone is really scary, then they will be very careful with the way they speak, because they are so scared. But sometimes if you are kind to people and they're relaxed around you, it's more easy for them to get upset with you and to express that upset, because they relax more, right? And when you're relaxed, you're not so careful, you're not so guarded. And when you're not so guarded, things just come out of your mouth, randomly. And so I thought I should take that as a compliment when someone speaks to me in a bad way. It means that I'm making them relaxed and at ease. That's the way I was thinking. And then how can you not be happy if you think like that? it's really great. Everything is okay then. Everything is kind of good. You're talking harshly to me. Yay, it means I'm causing you to relax. Hooray, what a wonderful thing, yeah. And of course, there is something true to that, right? It's not entirely wrong, yeah. And so, there you are. Okay, that's a good place to do some meditations. Let's meditate on that and see what happens. Just a few minutes.
Ajahn, just looking at the Pali word here, patience, acceptance is the ultimate. So kanti paramang tapo titika, and is the Buddha trying to make a distinction that tapo here relates more to the self-mortification, endurance kind of thing?
Yeah.
And he's just saying that kanti is more like acceptance and all that is the ultimate kind of self endurance and all that.
Yeah, that's
so that's why he makes a difference between the two words in Pali, or is he just trying to refer to it's all about endurance and all that? Is there a distinction in terms of the quality of kanti as compared to like tapo, which is more like self torture and all that?
I think the point that he is making is something like that, is that tapo in ancient India, tapas before the Buddha or even during that time, part of the the Jains or whatever, was basically all about torturing the body. That's what it meant at that time. And so the Buddha is trying to give that word a new meaning here. And this is what he always does. He, instead of saying that actually torturing the body is the highest austerity or the highest asceticism, it's actually endurance or acceptance that is the highest austerity. There's a new kind of austerity. He's always trying to redefine things in new ways. It's the highest in the sense that it is the most effective kind of austerity for purifying the mind. Yeah, if you want to purify the mind, that's what you really want to do. And this is the best kind of austerity for making progress on the path. That's why it is the highest kind of austerity. But it is a kind of austerity, yeah. Because you have to stop yourself. You have to experience some suffering when you are patient with others. If you don't experience that suffering, you tend to blurt things out. But the mind just wants to blurt things out. That holding back has a degree of suffering to it, and that is a kind of asceticism. Your kind of austerity or asceticism. So tapo was the word I was missing there. I forgot that before. So tapo titika, and that is the important point that you're making there. So kanti is a word that is related to kamati. Kamati means forgiveness, acceptance, and for that reason also patience. These are all ballpark the same kind of meaning, the same kind of word: accepting, forgiving, being patient, etc. So in the Pali, it's all the same, pretty much the same word. All right. Anything else? Okay. Yeah.
Ajahn, I have something personal to ask you. In the Metta Sutta, the Buddha says, don't harm a sentient beings.
Yeah.
Right? And over here, I think it also mentions something like that.
Yeah.
My question is, for layperson like us, all right? So we eat meat, we buy from the supermarket, we order fish and all that. Because of the demand and the supply, so the sentient beings got slaughtered.
Yep.
So are we in conflict with this Dharma teaching?
So
how should we look at it?
Yeah. So the answer is that when it comes to killing living beings, the act of killing itself is the most damaging one. So the person who does the killing is the one who incurs the karma, basically, because killing is you can imagine if you shoot an animal, it's very different from eating meat. When you shoot, it feels really bad. I don't know if you have ever killed an animal in your life, but if you have it, I don't know. I remember killing animals long time ago, and it just feels terrible in my opinion. But eating meat doesn't have the same feeling here. There's something about the act of killing that creates very powerful karma, whereas eating meat does not. So that's number one. So stopping killing is different from eating meat, and stopping killing is more important. However, you're right that if you eat meat, more animals will get killed. So you are kind of supporting that industry, and more animals are suffering as a consequence. And for that reason, it's good to be vegetarian. Yeah, I'm always very, very happy for people to be vegetarian. And if anyone says I want to be vegetarian, I say good on you for being vegetarian. I eat fish myself, so pescatarian they call that. And the reason is because I just have never kind of that's kind of what I ended up doing. But sometimes I think maybe I should be a full vegetarian, or maybe even a vegan. We have a vegan in our monastery. One of the monks is a vegan, and he doesn't eat anything that has any animal products. At the end of the day, anything you eat will cause the death of living beings. Yeah, all farming causes death. So eating meat causes death, but also eating vegetables causes death. This is kind of the tragedy. You cannot live without causing the death of other beings. Life is just made out like that. And so whether you eat meat or vegetables doesn't make a very big difference, because some beings are going to die regardless, one way or the other. But at the very least, you are stopping that. Vegetables, very often they will spray for mosquitoes and spray for all kind of pests, pesticides and things like that. Still deliberate killing. So the difference isn't that great. But still, it's a beautiful idea. Yeah, I want to be a vegetarian. And so I think it's not required. But if you want to do it and people want to do it, I will certainly say good on you. Well done for doing that. Yeah.
Second question.
Yeah.
Say we continue to eat the poultry that we buy from the supermarket. So before cooking the chicken, is it good to say something to the chicken?
I am so sorry that I bought you. Oh, yes, I apologize. You had to die. At least I'm going to enjoy the taste. No, no, don't. Yeah, I don't think there's much point in saying anything to the chicken. I think that's kind of done. Yeah. So you share the merit with all beings, and maybe that chicken, if it was a relative in a past life, it will get some of that merit, So maybe that's kind of scary. Imagine if that chicken is your grandma, and then now you're eating your grandma, Remember that all the beings in the world are probably related to us in one way or another in some life, So quite literally, quite likely, some of these animals you eat will have been your relatives in a past life. That kind of turns you off a little bit from eating them. You kind of think, oh, maybe I shouldn't have been eating them in that case. So, and this is one of those very strange teachings that you actually find in the suttas. This Buddha says, very hard to find any being anywhere who hasn't been your mum, your dad, your daughter, your son, your husband, your wife, whatever. We have all been related in these ways. So I'm not sure if there's much point in saying anything, but share merit at any opportunity you have anyway.